Okay, what I'm going to do is finish up the notes that we've been working on all week dealing with these trigonometric identities. You can just kind of take these notes, and this gives us a chance to actually get to work on some of these a little bit more in class. So here's another example. This picks up where we left off here. We've got the expression cosine of x over 1 plus sine of x equals 1 minus the sine of x over the cosine of x, and we are supposed to prove that these two sides are congruent. Well, the problem with this is I've been saying all week that you're supposed to put these in terms of sine and cosine. If you notice, it's already everything is sine and cosine. One of the things that we can do is actually multiply by a conjugate of this denominator, and we've done this a long time ago. Hopefully this will kind of come back to you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this cosine of x. So we've got the cosine of x over 1 plus the sine of x. And sometimes if you've got this quantity down here, this 1 plus sine of x, if I multiply it through by its conjugate, which is 1 minus the sine of x, then watch what will happen here. First of all, I'm going to leave this side to be the same, just like we've been doing all week. Usually if you leave that alone, then things are okay. So what I'm going to do is I'll multiply this cosine by this quantity. I get cosine times 1, which is cosine, minus cosine times sine, and that is sine cosine. This will be over, if we multiply these two, what we actually have to do is FOIL that out. So if I take 1 times 1, that's 1. 1 times negative sine is negative sine. Positive sine times 1 is positive sine. So if you take a look at that, you've got negative sine and a positive sine. Those cancel out, which is exactly why we'll multiply by its conjugate. Then we have this sine times negative sine, which is negative sine squared. Well, in looking at this 1 minus sine squared, if you recall, is actually equal to cosine squared. Okay, so I've got cosine of x minus the sine of x times the cosine of x, and that is over cosine squared of x. Now, it's almost like I'm going to be going in circles, because up here I distribute this cosine. Actually, as I'm looking at this, I didn't need to do that, because if I look at this numerator up here, I've got cosine times the quantity of 1 minus sine of x. That actually, again, I didn't really have to multiply that out. I didn't know that at the time, but now I do. Because what will happen, as you may see, I'll just change colors here, this cosine here cancels one of those out, and what we are left with is 1 minus the sine of x over the cosine of x, which is exactly what we are trying to shoot for there anyway. Okay. Now I'm going to add another one to these notes here. This actually was not initially planned, but a couple of things here. You're going to run into some situations. First of all, if you have 1 minus 9 times the secant squared of x, okay, and we're supposed to simplify this with something, let's just say. Well, if you look at this, this is actually a quadratic type of a setup here. In other words, we can factor that down. Okay? This is kind of like if we were to have 1 minus 9x squared. It's what's called a difference of squares, if you recall, which factors down to 1 plus 3x times 1 minus 3x. Okay, the same idea is going on here. If we've got 1 minus 9 secant squared, I can factor that down to 1 minus 3 times the secant of x times 1 plus 3 times the secant of x. Okay, so if you see a quadratic form of an equation throughout this assignment, what you can do is you can actually factor that down. I would suggest writing that down, and then when you're working on this, if you're working on this in class, I can just kind of refer to this in your notes. That's about all I have for you right now. So take that with all the notes we've taken this week, and hopefully that will help you out. Have a great evening.